All right, let's dive into this meaning of meaning thing today. It's a pretty interesting conversation we're looking at today. It's
Mhm.
this back and forth, like a Q&A that really digs into like understanding itself,
Mm.
how we figure things out on our own with each other and like in those bigger groups we're all part of.
Absolutely.
And it even gets into stuff like, how much do I really need to know to just like live a good life?
Yeah, some big questions.
Or like, do experts ever get to stop learning? Buckle up, because this is where it gets kind of deep.
It really does get into some of those fundamental things about how we learn, how we grow over our whole lives. Yeah.
So the source material here, it kicks off with that classic Venn diagram,
Mhm.
those three overlapping circles.
Of course.
They're using that to show like individual, interpersonal, and then group understanding.
Yeah, that's a common way to start thinking about it.
But then what I thought was cool was they actually have this other way of looking at it, like layers of an onion.
Yeah, that's
Ah.
what really stood out to me.
Okay, so help me out here. How does understanding work like an onion?
Okay, so think about it this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the very core, you have like your own individual understanding
Mm-hmm.
based on just your own experiences, what you already believe.
Okay.
And then as you start interacting with other people, you're basically building layers of what they call interpersonal understanding.
So you're adding on to that core.
Exactly. You're learning from their point of view, from what they've been through,
Yeah.
and it adds to what you already have. And then surrounding all of this is that layer of group understanding. So that's like the shared knowledge, the values, even the culture of like the groups you belong to.
So it's like each layer like depends on the ones before it. You can't have a good understanding of a group's culture without first getting yourself and how you relate to other people.
Exactly. And the onion thing, the analogy, it really shows how connected all those levels are. They're always influencing and shaping each other.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. This is making me think of those aha moments, like when you finally grasp something and you're like, wait, why did it take me so long to get this?
Right, yeah.
Have you ever had that feeling where you finally understand something, but you know you couldn't have gotten there on your own?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes our own experience isn't enough.
Yeah.
Or the issue is just way too complex. The source material actually digs into why we sometimes need help understanding things, and it really hit home for me.
Yeah. So what are some of those reasons? Why do we sometimes hit those roadblocks, like in understanding?
Well, sometimes, and we've all been there, we have biases,
Mm.
and they can just block us from seeing things clearly.
Right.
Other times, we just don't have the right skills or knowledge to really break things down.
Mm.
And sometimes it's really as simple as we haven't had enough experience with whatever that topic is.
Hmm. I guess that's kind of reassuring for anyone who's ever felt stuck. Like, it's not about being smart enough.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we all have blind spots, right? And
Right.
that we can learn from other people.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that actually leads perfectly into this next thing, this deep-seated drive we all seem to have for deeper meaning.
It's like, why are we so curious? Why do we keep wanting to learn even when we have, like, all the stuff we need to survive?
Hmm.
Wouldn't it be easier to just chill?
Well, what they suggest in the source material is that it's not just about like being practical.
Yeah.
It's also about becoming better problem solvers.
Yeah.
Growing as individuals, getting more creative, and connecting with the world like in richer ways.
So it's not just about memorizing facts and figures, huh? It helps us become, like, well-rounded people.
I think so, yeah. It makes life better on so many levels.
That makes sense. But okay, so then this brings up a question. If we say that deeper meaning is a good thing, does that mean we always have to be learning new stuff?
Right.
Isn't there some point where it just becomes too much?
Oh, for sure. It's totally a balancing act. They talk about that a lot in the source material, like
Yeah.
the tension between this desire to learn and also wanting to live a good life right here, right now.
Yeah, nobody wants to be on their deathbed thinking, man, I wish I'd read more books.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you personally balance wanting to learn new things with all the other stuff you want to do in life?
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line?
Well,
Tough question, right?
yeah, it is.
Think about it this way, okay? Basic knowledge, it's like the foundation of a house.
Okay.
It's got to be there for the whole thing to be stable and work, right?
Mm.
But then learning new things, it's like decorating. It's adding those personal touches that turn a house into a home.
I like that.
So you can totally have a functional life without becoming some kind of scholar. But those extra layers of knowledge,
Yeah.
they can make things so much richer, so much more beautiful.
So you're saying we don't have to be experts in everything to have a good life.
Right.
But adding those, what did you call them, decorations of knowledge, can make it even better.
Precisely. It's about finding what feels right for you and how you want to live.
Now, this leads me to another question that I bet some people listening are wondering too. Do experts, those people who are already at the top of their field, do they need to keep learning?
Hmm. This is a fascinating question. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're already killing it in your career, do you need to keep pushing?
Like, is expertise enough?
Right.
The source material actually lays out both sides.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. So, on the one hand, they say, hey, expertise is valuable and it's good to be specialized.
Right.
But then they're like, well, hold on. The world's changing so fast that new knowledge is what keeps those experts relevant and adaptable. Think about how fast technology changes, for example.
It's true.
Like, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So what do you think? You're the expert here.
Well, I think it's a little more nuanced than just needing to keep up, you know? I think learning new things, even stuff outside your main area, it can give you a wider perspective, spark new ideas.
So it's not just keeping up, it's also expanding, like your mental horizons and challenging yourself.
Exactly. But I think this brings up a big constraint we all face. Time.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right. We're all busy.
Yeah, finding time to really learn something in depth can feel impossible.
Totally. And I know you like to get down to brass tacks, so to speak.
Actionable advice.
Yeah. How do we actually make time to learn when life is already so full?
That's the million-dollar question, right? What can we actually do?
Well, in the source material, they suggest a few things. First, set specific learning goals.
Okay.
Not just, I want to learn more, but like, I want to learn this skill.
Makes sense.
Then make an actual schedule. Actually block out time for learning, just like you would for anything else important.
Put it on the calendar.
Exactly. And then they talk about looking for micro-learning opportunities in everyday life.
What's microlearning?
It's finding those little moments throughout your day where you can squeeze in some learning, even if it's just for a few minutes, like listening to a podcast while you're commuting, or reading an article while you wait for an appointment, or even just having a conversation with someone who knows something you don't.
So it's about making the most of those small pockets of time we all have, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
And don't underestimate rest. When you're well rested, your brain is just so much better at absorbing new info.
It's like anything else, you can't run on empty. Gotta take care of yourself if you want to learn effectively.
Right. And one more thing, don't forget about hobbies and things you actually enjoy doing,
Yeah.
because those also contribute to a well-rounded life. And a well-rounded life actually supports your ability to learn and grow.
So it all comes back to balance, doesn't it? Finding time to learn, but also enjoying life while you're doing it.
Exactly. And remembering that every little bit of learning adds up.
This feels like a good spot to pause for a second. We've covered a lot already, but there's still so much more to dig into. When we come back, we'll continue our deep dive into the meaning of meaning.
Sounds good. You know, while we were just talking about time, it made me think of something else from the source material.
Oh, yeah.
It was this idea that how we understand time itself can actually impact how we learn.
Whoa, okay. I haven't thought about that connection before.
Yeah, they touch on how different cultures and societies, they view time in totally different ways.
That makes sense.
Like some people see time as linear, always moving forward,
Right.
while others see it as more cyclical or like really present focused.
So if you think time is limited, like it's always slipping away, you might be more driven to like learn and grow as much as you can, right?
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you're more chill about time, you might focus more on enjoying the moment.
Just going with the flow.
Yeah, just savoring those experiences as they come. It's really fascinating how those different views can shape what we prioritize in life.
Yeah, it really is. It makes me wonder if our own personal beliefs about time affect how we learn too. Like someone who's always feeling pressed for time, maybe they're going to look for those faster ways to learn things.
Right.
While someone who has a more abundant view of time, maybe they're more patient with a longer learning process.
That's a really good point. It highlights how important it is to know yourself, to know your own relationship with time, if you want to actually make learning something that you can stick with.
Something sustainable.
Yeah. What feels balanced and fun for one person might be completely different for someone else.
So we've talked about the different layers of understanding, the drive for deeper meaning, the balance between learning and just living life, and now this whole thing about time. Is there anything else from what we've been looking at that stood out to you?
There's this one more point I found really relevant.
Okay, what is it?
It's about the role of experts in society.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Right. We talked about whether experts need to keep learning. But the source material takes it further and looks at how society values and relies on expertise in general.
Which is a huge topic, especially these days when it feels like expertise is constantly being questioned and challenged.
Exactly. And the source material acknowledges that, that
Right.
complexity. So while it says that expertise is obviously super important for progress and innovation,
Right. We need experts.
it also says we need healthy skepticism and critical thinking.
So not just blindly accepting everything an expert says just because they're an expert.
Right. It encourages us to really engage with their knowledge, to ask the right questions.
So it's about finding that balance between respecting expertise and also thinking critically for ourselves.
Exactly. Oh, and they also make this really interesting point that true expertise isn't just about having the knowledge.
Hmm.
It's about actually applying it in a way that's effective and ethical, like to make a real difference in the world.
So what good is all that knowledge if it's just sitting there? We have to use it to benefit the world around us.
Totally. It's like a call to action.
Hmm.
Take what you've learned and put it into practice.
Make it real.
Yeah. Whether that's mentoring someone, sharing your knowledge with your community, or even just approaching the world with a more curious and open mind.
I love that. It's like learning isn't just this solo journey. It's something we do together that can shape the world.
Yeah. And that's pretty powerful when you think about it.
It really is. This has been such a thought-provoking conversation so far.
Me too. And we've only scratched the surface.
I know, right? But I do want to give you a chance to leave our listener with one of your trademark final thoughts.
Okay, so as we've been talking about this whole search for meaning, it's made me think about something they don't really address directly in the source material, but that I think is really worth considering.
I'm all ears.
So we keep saying that looking for meaning is this ongoing journey, right?
Mhm.
But how do we choose which path to take on that journey? What guides us? What, maps and compasses do we trust?
Whoa, that is a big one.
Right. There's no one right answer, no universal guidebook to meaning.
It's a choose your own adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate all this incredible knowledge and experience that's out there? Do we rely on tradition, intuition, reason, the wisdom of other people, or maybe some combination of all of those things? What feels like the most authentic path for you on your journey?
That's deep. It's like we're each given a blank canvas and told to create something meaningful, but no one gives us any instructions.
I know, it's both exciting and kind of
It
scary.
really is. This whole conversation has been so thought-provoking.
I agree.
But I know you probably have even more insights to share with our listener.
I might.
Should we take a quick break and come back for one last segment to wrap things up?
Sounds good to me.
All right, we're back for the last part of our deep dive into the meaning of meaning. It's been quite a journey, wouldn't you say?
It really has. Yeah, we've covered so much from individual understanding all the way to how whole groups understand things.
Yeah.
From those practical tips to the more philosophical stuff about knowledge and understanding.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to this idea that understanding isn't like some finish line you cross.
Right.
It's more like a process of always growing.
Yeah, it's like a spiral. Always
Yeah.
building on what you know, but expanding outward too. Like as you experience new things,
Exactly.
you never really arrive, it just keeps evolving.
That's a great way to put it. And it reminds me of how much the source material emphasized being open to new perspectives.
Yeah.
Even ones that challenge what we already believe.
Yeah, it is easy to get stuck in your own ways of thinking.
Totally. So if we're not willing to question our assumptions and consider other viewpoints, our understanding becomes limited.
It gets stale.
Yeah, it gets stagnant.
So how do we actively work to keep our minds open then, to avoid getting stuck in those ruts?
Well, they talk about that too. They highlight the power of dialogue, of actual conversations as a way to broaden our understanding.
So talking to people actually helps.
Yeah. It's through interacting with others, bouncing ideas back and forth, that we can really stretch our thinking and see things in new ways.
Makes sense.
You know that saying, iron sharpens iron?
I've heard of it.
Kind of like that. Talking with people who think differently can help us sharpen our own understanding.
Well, this has been such a fascinating exploration.
We agree.
As we start to wrap up here, is there anything else you want to leave our listener with today? Any final thoughts or insights that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
All this talk about searching for meaning, it's made me reflect on something that's not really in the source material directly,
Okay.
but I think it's really important to think about.
I'm listening.
So we keep saying that seeking meaning is this ongoing journey. Right?
Yeah, we said that a lot.
But how do we individually, how do we choose our path on that journey? what guides us.
Yeah, what are our maps and compasses?
Exactly. There's no single right answer or like universal guidebook. So how do we navigate all this incredible knowledge and experience out there? Like, do we trust tradition, intuition, reason, the wisdom of others? Or maybe it's some combination of all those things.
That's a big question. What feels like the most authentic path for you?
Exactly.
Wow. But we've covered so much ground today, the layers of understanding, this drive for deeper meaning, how to balance learning with actually living, staying open to new ideas.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
But it seems like in the end, this meaning of meaning is something each of us has to figure out on our own.
I think that's true. It's a lifelong adventure, and that's kind of what makes it so exciting.
It really is.
We hope this deep dive has made you curious and given you some new things to think about.
Absolutely. So keep searching, keep questioning, keep exploring, and most importantly, trust yourself to find your own meaning and your own path.
Couldn't have said it better myself.